YouTube, what is good? It is your boy Flex. Put your muscles up. So I'm back with another video. In today's video, man, we're gonna be doing a LADbible reaction. It's about a cop who went undercover as a football hooligan, man. So this one should be pretty interesting. So let's go ahead and cut out all the chit chat, man. Grab your headphones, turn the volume up, get that full experience. Get into the videos, watch it, let's go.
We were on a train early on into the operation. There was a guy sitting on the train opposite with his wife and his two kids. And he had a Crystal Palace lapel badge, just a little badge on his jacket. The guy saw it, he leant across and he punched the bloke squarely in the face and then hit him 3 more times in front of his wife and his two kids. He were two little girls who must have been aged 4 and 6.
Yeah, that's pretty foul, man, just for having a little pin. You know what I mean? Like, and now you probably got the wife thinking that the husband is involved in stuff that he shouldn't be involved in. It's a pretty unfortunate situation.
My dad was a police officer. I grew up in South London, and I got to about 15, and my friends, we were all going one way or the other, and I just fell one side of the fence, they fell the other side. So I joined the police cadets when I was 16, so it sort of worked on from there, really, but it wasn't something that I was actively choosing to do at that age. It was just sort of fell into it a little bit, really.
So how did you get into undercover work?
So I left the police cadets. I joined the regular force when I was 18 and a half. I got mentored by a sergeant who used to be in plain clothes.
Okay, so I have to kind of explain my thinking. Like, the reason why I made that face is because, like, you know, your father was a police officer, right? And you said that as you were growing up, your friends, you know, you and your friends kind of fell on opposite sides of the fence. But then you're sitting here saying that this is not something that you actively chose to do. It sounds like, you know, you were been contemplating law enforcement for a while, you know, especially having that influence growing up. It just seems like a little bit of in denial, in my opinion.
Saw something in me, and I started to work in plain clothes from an early, quite early, within sort of 3 months. And then within 18 months, I was on a crime squad. I got special dispensation because I was still in probation. I just took to it quite naturally. I was, I suppose, for want of a better word, chosen to work in an undercover environment. I was 21, so I think it was probably the youngest officer that had done that, certainly at that time.
What does it take to be a good undercover officer?
You have to be really good at lying and to convince people that you're something that you're not. You have to have a massive ego in order to put yourself in an environment where you think you can survive. Pretty confident. Quite bright in a way, in that you can think on your feet quite quickly in order to get yourself in or out of situations. There isn't a one specific. You don't sort of get. It's not that sort of career or that job or that profession that you do that you could. You know, you get to a certain age and they go, oh, you'd be quite good at doing, maybe be good at working undercover. It's just not an exact science. It just is something that either you can do or you can't.
So how do you choose you're undercover? How do you choose what specifically you're going to be doing? How
You don't. That gets chosen for you, really. The job that I was given was to infiltrate Millwall football hooligans. The police's aim was to try and rid that hooligan culture and to get in with the people that were organising and creating the issues and the problems and the fights. And that would involve about the arranging, where they were fighting, the actual fights that they carried out, the assaults and everything else that goes along with that. So yeah, there are certain clubs that attract a hooligan element. So Millwall, Leeds, West Ham, Chelsea were clubs that had a bigger attraction to football hooligans, and Millwall was one of the top clubs, and it was a reputation that they deserved, for want of a better word, as they were a force to be reckoned with. So I did my research.
Top dogs, huh?
and I did everything I could to know about the team before and the current team and previous teams to try and get as much information. Because you've got to remember, I was suddenly appearing from nowhere.
Right.
They're quite a tight-knit group of people. And suddenly this new face, or these two new faces appear. You need to try and put yourself in the best position that you can in order to progress yourself further up the ranks, as it may be.
And his explanation makes total sense on like what it takes to be an undercover cop. You know, as far as the traits, like, you know, being a good liar, confidence, the wittiness, the smarts. You know, it's true because, like he said, you know, there's two brand new faces coming around this close tight knit group. You know, and so you gotta have your already, for one, your information in order. So of course, you know, he does his research. You know what I mean, and for two, yeah, you got to think on your feet. You know, because these guys are gonna be coming at you with all these different types of questions and stuff to be able to test you. So I feel like, man, anybody who's like an undercover cop and puts themselves intentionally in those dangerous situations to better the world or whatever, you got my respect, man, because that's not easy.
In relation to football.
So can you talk me through your legend?
Yeah, my legend. We weren't given a great deal of help when we first started. And my legend when I initially started was a business card, on which that business card was that I was Jim Ford. I worked for Spectrum Decorating, and I had an address which was an accommodation address in Croydon. That was it. That was my legend.
You just got to come up with
I
the
made
rest.
out that I was from Wandsworth and that I was a painter and decorator. So going in and saying, I'm Jim, you've never met me before, I'm a lifelong Millwall supporter, although I've never been here. And they asked me who I am. I go, oh, don't worry, here's my business card. That was about as good as it got. And we learnt very, very, very quickly that we needed a little bit more. So we started to go into a Millwall pub, and we used to go in at lunchtimes. And then, because no one went in there, and then whilst we went in at lunchtimes, we would then befriend the bar staff. And we went in for 3 months, solid, pretty much every lunchtime. So we became regular fixtures. When we then turned up at football in the September, you would walk in and the pub would go quiet and everyone would look at everybody as they came in because it was that sort of pub. We walked in, everyone looked at us, and obviously the barmaids who were behind the bar recognised us and called us out. And as a result of that, everyone accepted us because obviously the bar staff had accepted
That's smart.
us. So on that basis, they asked less questions.
That's
gradually-
smart. Like, that's that wittiness. That's that thinking on your feet. Because without that what's the word I'm looking for? That confirmation. You know, without that validation from somebody else that they're familiar with. Yeah. Good luck.
Just
Good
we
luck.
went to the matches. We went away. We started to spend quite a lot of money, buy lots of drinks, make sure that we were always there, and we got a bit lucky. We went on a special, on a football special to Leeds. We went on the train and met up with 3 guys who we got on with, and as a result of that, it forged a relationship, and it just went on from there.
What were the worst things you've seen?
The most frightening one for me was Arsenal in the 4th round of the FA Cup. So we went, and we were at that stage we were quite well in with some of the hooligans, and we ended up, me and the sergeant, in the North Bank, which was the away end of Arsenal. So yeah, we went in. We were in the middle of, so you can imagine it, we were standing there, there was 15 of us. We were surrounded by 8,000 Arsenal. And I'm standing there thinking, this is not good. And one of the guys picked up on it, they were a lot older than me, and said, look, don't worry, everything's going to be fine. Opened his jacket and showed me, and he had a 6-inch stiletto knife. So I'm now thinking, this is going to get...
That's what I'm saying. Like, that would not reassure me that everything is going to be okay. That would actually do the opposite. After seeing that, I'm thinking, for sure, somebody's going to die. Like, somebody's going to die here, and I'm going to be a witness.
Be really problematic here. And I'm standing there singing along thinking, no one likes us, but actually within me I'm thinking, I'm going to die here. And it, very, very quickly, they realised who we were. So the crowd moved out. And then because there always is, the initial start, the first guy came forward. One of the Arsenal guys came running towards us, coming towards me, because I was the youngest and probably the smallest. And one of the other guys just stepped out and hit him straight on the nose. And the guy went did a complete 360 and came down and he just crashed onto the concrete terraces. And it was, you can imagine there's quite a lot going on at this stage. It went completely quiet and everyone, including us and all of the Arsenal supporters, just went, ooh.
Yeah.
And then these two little guys just appeared from nowhere and the crowd sort of opened up and they grabbed this guy by the legs and pulled him back in. It was a bit like Ben Hur. He just like sort of disappeared back in and the crowd closed. And then it all kicked off. And one thing you learn very, very quickly in that environment is that you don't go down. You stand up, because the minute you go down, you're in all sorts of trouble. And so I was just kicking and punching and ended up out on the pitch and got arrested. But the guy made a bit of a mistake, because instead of leading me to the tunnel where they take you down this way, he led me this way, which took me towards 10,000 Millwall. And as we were leaving, I could tell by the way he was holding me that he was starting to get quite nervous. And he'd started and he now couldn't stop, so we started to walk towards the 10,000 Millwall. And I saw my chance, and he wasn't holding on to me time. And as we got close to the crowd, I managed to break free, weave through a couple of coppers, and then dived in the crowd. And from then on, it was, I was well and truly accepted.
How scared were you?
I was absolutely shitting myself. Yeah. Fear like that, but the adrenaline is absolutely huge.
Right.
And so you know that you're in that position, you're not going to be able to run away in that scenario. You just have to go with what you've got. So yeah, I was absolutely petrified.
And I'm sure there's a big difference in being, someone who is really truly spirited about football hooliganism and being a true patron of the sport, and the difference in being a cop who's just there undercover and just trying to see what's going on. You know what I mean? Like, that's kind of an intense situation to be thrown into when you're not used to it, when that's not something that you're really into. I'd be terrified myself, honestly. I mean, I still want to attend an event, but to get caught in a situation like that, nah, I'm good.
But at the same time, it's unbelievably exhilarating, and you're trying to get yourself in a position where to safety. And when you do and you survive, it's quite euphoric.
How does it actually feel to effectively live your life pretending you're someone else? You get used to it. It was a job. And I know people find that really, they just go, yeah, but it was a job. And some people love their jobs and some people hate their jobs. And I really loved that job. But it was a job. But I wanted to be the best at that I could be. And in order to do that, there were occasions when I had to behave like a hooligan. But that was my job.
See, the crazy thing about him saying that, it's just a job, it's his job, it's like the job that you do is actively deceiving and manipulating people, like you're actively engaging and building a relationship with these unsuspecting people, and in the long run, that's going to cause trust issues. Like, obviously, like, some of these people are doing things they're not supposed to be doing, and like, you're breaking laws, and yeah, they need to be caught, whatever. But you're saying that it's just a job, that means you like and you enjoy being a liar, being a deceiver, being a manipulator. And that's a scary thing, that's a scary thing, especially if you plan on, getting married or having kids, and knowing that you have this background in being a deceiver, being a liar, being a manipulator. I don't know. I feel like, just my opinion, I feel like it would, it would be hard to really build a trusting and loving relationship. I could be absolutely wrong. It's just an opinion. So let me know how you think in the comments.
Was to be a hooligan. And so on that basis, I had to display certain characteristics in order to convince people that that's what I was.
because if I didn't, then I wouldn't get the evidence that I needed, and I wouldn't have been any good at what I did.
Yeah.
Did you ever get emotionally connected to anyone?
Yeah, of course.
Yeah. See.
So lots of them, some of them are really nice guys.
Yeah.
They just like to have a fight at football. But there are an element that just really aren't very nice at all. And the best place for them is not to be on the terraces.
I'm
Makes
just
sense
trying to
too, yeah,
imagine
for
the-
sure.
Kind of the mental strain
It's horrendous.
of going through things like that all the time.
So the worst situation on the operation was we were on a train early on into the operation. We were travelling to London with a target that we'd just got to know. There was a guy sitting on the train opposite with his wife and his 2 kids, and he had a Crystal Palace lapel badge, just a little badge on his jacket. The guy saw it, he leant across and he punched the bloke squarely in the face, and then hit him 3 more times, in front of his wife and his 2 kids. He were 2 little girls, he must have been aged 4 and 6. So for me, I stood up on the seats and started singing No One Likes Us in order to try and detract attention, and he stopped. And it worked, because he stopped.
Good on you.
The look from the 2 little girls who were now crying, and the wife, and him, but particularly from the 2 girls who were looking at me, standing up singing No One Likes Us, I'll never forget. There's everything within me and the sergeant just wanted to arrest him. But I couldn't.
Right. Hard.
So we had to endure that rest of that train journey with this guy bleeding from the nose, being comforted by his wife and his 2 kids crying, until we got off at London Bridge, hoping that he would report it and that at a later date the guy could be arrested and he could be held accountable for his actions. But he never reported it. So that was, for me, the worst experience during that whole time.
Yeah, those guys, get them out of here. Get them out of here, man. Go ahead and build your evidence, build your cases or whatever. Get those types of dudes out of here. You know, like, I understand, like, in the heat of the moment when you're going back and forth with somebody, you know what I mean, who is also as heated as you are and passionate and mutual on the subject. But when you're just on the train, you know, your guy got his family. He might be a fan of the team. Doesn't mean he's a hooligan. He could just be a good old fan, you know. And you just straight tee off on him. Yeah, let's get him out of here, man. And I feel bad for them, you know, because they obviously they're on a better moral compass than the dudes that they're investigating. And you know, and with the good moral compass, obviously you got a pretty strong conscience. So obviously, not being able to do nothing, not being able to help, I'm sure it weighed heavy.
Did you ever feel guilty about any of that?
It's like all of us, we all question about what we do as we get older, about whether or not it was a good thing or a bad thing. But it was my job. You can't justify it by saying that all the time.
Right.
But that was what I was there to do. And I chose to take that job. And so, for me, the important thing was to try and do it as convincingly as I can. And the more convincing I was, the safer I was going to be.
Have you ever been close to being exposed?
We had an experience where we had an incident where the sergeant who I'd been working with had told the guys that we were working on a job in Catford, which we were, but we weren't there that week. And they'd gone down to see us. And we weren't there, and the guys didn't know when they started asking, where's Jim? And they just went, we don't know who you're talking about, because they were doing the roof. We turned up on the Saturday and got confronted about the fact that, who are you? We came down to your job, and I'm going, what job? I don't know what you're talking about, because the sergeant hadn't made me aware of the fact that he'd had this conversation. And we ended up in a situation where we got confronted and called out. And again, that was another situation where you just stand there and think, right, what do I do here? Is we either run away or we front it up? And I fronted it up. And we got away with it.
Did you felt like you were in danger at that point?
Yeah, to put it in perspective, you're in danger all the time because you are in a scenario where you just don't know what is going to happen next. So but there are different levels of danger. So you put yourself, every time you put yourself or go into a pub or go to a match or do anything, you are leaving yourself, you're exposing yourself to danger. It's just about how you deal with that and how you best make sure that you can control it as best that you can. So they're just levels, but all of the time it's dangerous.
See, it's so crazy to me. Like the way he's talking, right? The things he's been through. Like you would think that he's trying to take down like drug lords and human traffickers and gangbangers who have murderous rap sheets. No, these are just football fans. These are just guys who like to watch football and get rowdy on the weekends.
It's just about
It's crazy to me.
how you deal with that and what level of danger is dangerous enough for you to go, I'm out of here now.
When you work undercover, could you actually tell your friends or family or anyone what you're doing?
The person I was
Real
living
life as
with
well?
at the time knew, she knew, but it has an impact. It is you know, like you come home and it's like with all jobs that we all do, is you come home and try and switch off. But with that, it's quite difficult. You tend to try and tell the least amount of people as possible, but people will pick up on it is the fact that I went from 12 stone, pretty fit with short hair, to 15 and a half, 16 stone, long hair, earrings, completely physically different within 2 years. So people will, and you're meant to be a serving police officer, and people know that, they would look at you and think, he's certainly not walking the beat, not looking like that.
So how long overall did you spend undercover at Millwall?
2.5 years.
And what was the outcome of your operation?
The operation was concluded on a phone call. It's finished. No one was arrested. Nobody was brought to justice. There was no trial. It was just concluded overnight on a phone call.
Why?
There'd been some really bad publicity around operations, the similar operations at West Ham and Chelsea, and both of the trials had collapsed. And they'd collapsed due to police officers making up evidence and lying. And the Chelsea trial didn't even get to a decision where it was a verdict. It was halted, and it was because it was proven very, very quickly that what was happening is that the officers were fabricating evidence and making it up. And the reason for that is again, it's not an ego thing. It's just it's just an honest assumption. Is they weren't very good, and because they weren't very good, they didn't manage to get the evidence that they needed. So in order to try and convince people that they were better than they were, they made it up, and they got caught out.
That makes sense.
And as a result of that, the police force, as it was then, the police service, as it is now, decided that maybe that's what everyone else was doing. So
That sucks. You know, you got one or two guys that ruined the operation for everybody else. You know, but that definitely makes sense. You know, like if you can't get in good enough with the people you're trying to investigate, you're not going to get your evidence, right? And if you can't get your evidence for your job, right, your job is going to look at you some sort of way. You know what I'm saying? So it's like they resorted into making stuff up, and that's so bad, man. Because like people were literally injured. You know, people deserve to go to jail, and it didn't happen. And this guy wasted two years of his life. 2.5 years, excuse me. He wasted 2.5 years of his life to get no results.
in order to not have the adverse publicity, the trials, all of the operations were shut down overnight, and ours was probably the highest profile one that just stopped.
How did it feel for it to end in one day?
I was angry, just because I'd spent 2.5 years, and it was my job, and I'd spent 2.5 years of doing this great job and getting this evidence, and there was sufficient evidence for a number of people to have been arrested and charged. And then the way that we were dealt with afterwards was appalling, really. Considering what we'd done. We were given 2 weeks off and then put back in uniform, and for me, told to go back to Orpington and drive a panda car. So I left.
How old were you when you left the police force?
23. I'd experienced an awful lot and seen a different side of police officers than I had before, because obviously working in an undercover environment, they were fully unaware who I was. They just thought I was just another Millwall football hooligan travelling around the country. And I didn't see a particularly good or nice side of certainly people that policed football back then. And I didn't really want to be associated with people like that, particularly in that environment, as there's really, really good police officers, but there are an awful lot that aren't very good. And so I was quite relieved, really, to be out of that. So yeah, I just looked at it as a new chapter, closed the book, and then moved on.
So did the undercover work change your view of football?
No, it changed my view of police. It didn't change my view of football. No, I think it was. I enjoyed my time. It was great. It was like it was the majority of the time. It was really good fun. You know, I got to Millwall were flying at that time and got into what is now the Premiership. Now got into the old First Division. So we were going to amazing grounds with amazing support, and I got to do that for 2.5 years. So there were some massive positives as a result of that. And they were an amazing team. But yeah, the biggest change for me was my attitudes towards the police.
How did that change?
I didn't particularly like them very much, if I'm being honest. I wasn't particular.
Wow.
You know, again, it's we're in a situation where, you know, we're being corralled, and the way that football was policed back then was completely different to how it is now. And it was no surprise that we ended up with the tragedies that we did because of the way that they policed and the way that they forced people into and tried to contain them. And again, I've not seen that because it was, and I'm not saying that all police officers, it's just that at that time and in that environment they weren't particularly good at what they did.
What would you say was the best thing about undercover work?
On a personal level, convincing people that you're something that you're not. Unbelievably satisfying for people to, you know, again, which is the acting thing, is to do a good job. And in order to do that, for people to believe in your character. And so that's probably for me, was the most satisfying. But again, probably the most disturbing was the fact that you managed to convince somebody that all these people that you're not, which isn't a great thing to do either. So it's a bit double-edged, really. When I started that operation, I was a kid. I was a spotty 21-year-old. When I finished it, I was a much heavier, much longer-haired man.
Wow.
And as they were walking around,
Very good and interesting story, man, to kind of see the insight of somebody who's been on both sides, you know, and the fact that after being on both sides, he's kind of siding with more of the hooligans, you know, as far as like how they're treated or how they treat people. You know, it's a crazy thing. You know, you would think that, you know, him being a cop, he'd be able to, you know, sympathize or empathize with the cops, but no, you know, he's being on the other side and seeing how the cops, that his colleagues, the people that he works with, the people that he's supposed to call, you know, colleagues, are not doing what they're supposed to be doing, or doing things the incorrect way, you know. And it's very sad, man. Like, the police are supposed to be here to protect and to serve and make sure that things go well, when when sometimes, you know, they're actually the cause of why things go the way they go. But it's a very interesting story, man. Very interesting story. You guys make sure to give this video a thumbs up if you guys enjoyed my commentary, my opinions. Post in the comments down below, and of course, smash that big red button, man. Until next time, y'all, put your muscles up. It's your boy Flex. I'm out of here. Peace.